Hey everyone, I'm Todd Keats, founder, CEO of My Care Friends, and I'm thrilled to be here today with Lance Slatton and Marianne Sciucco. Lance and Marianne have a lot to share with you today about, would you call it a merger or would you call it an acquisition? What would you call it?
Transition, I think, is a good word.
Okay.
That's what we've been saying.
It's a transition, and it's a wonderful transition. It's a transition of AlzAuthors and All Home Care Matters coming together. And I'm going to let them tell you about each of those, and then we'll get into some conversation about them. So let's start with Marianne. Marianne, can you tell us about AlzAuthors?
Hi, Todd. Thanks so much for inviting me to your podcast. AlzAuthors is the global community of authors writing about Alzheimer's and dementia from personal experience to light the way for others. That is our mission. We have almost 400 authors in our organization. All of these books have been written from their own caregiving experience. So these are just primarily your everyday caregiver, somebody that you might know, a friend, family member, and they've all been on their own journey with their loved one and have chosen to share their story and to write about it, to publish it so that other people can learn from their experience.
That's great. And Lance, tell us about All Home Care Matters.
Yeah, well, and likewise, Todd, thank you for inviting Marianne and I to join you today to discuss this exciting news. All Home Care Matters is a media platform. We produce 4 shows, All Home Care Matters being the primary one, to help educate families and professionals who are facing and dealing with the long-term care matrix in our country.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'm certainly aware of both AlzAuthors and All Home Care Matters. And Marianne, how did your caregiving experience influence your effort to co-found AlzAuthors?
Well, I had already embarked on AlzAuthors prior to becoming a family caregiver. I'm a registered nurse, and I had worked for many years in the dementia field, in the hospital setting, long-term care, all of that. Had a lot of experience with people and families dealing with dementias, and wrote a book based upon that called Blue Hydrangeas: An Alzheimer's Love Story, which is a novel, and had published it. And a couple of years after that, I connected with my co-founders, Jean Lee and Vicki Tapia, and we got together to do a 1-month campaign promoting each other's books. This was not an altruistic endeavor from at the start. And then in the midst of all of that, I started noticing changes with my stepfather. And in the end, he ended up being diagnosed with mixed dementia, frontotemporal and Alzheimer's. Yeah. And that was a short but arduous journey. And one thing that I realized as I went through that is here I was, I'm a nurse, I'm a professional, I work with people all the time. I had a spiel. I had like a whole speech in my head, and I would sometimes repeat that 2 or 3 times a day to families, all about what do I do? But then when I became responsible for my stepfather, I kind of forgot all of that stuff, and I was floundering, and I was had a lot of questions. I always say that confusion, on the part of a person with dementia, confusion begets confusion. Now everybody's confused because they don't know what to do. And so when I found myself becoming overwhelmed by all of that, one day I just said, Marianne, put on your nursing cap. And what would you tell yourself if you were approaching yourself as a family member? What would you tell that person? So then I wrote it all down. I figured it all out. I put up a strategy based upon what I already knew. So that I found to be really helpful. And one of the things that Vicki and Jean and I realized from the outset, is these books were really hard to market. There was a lot of stigma and taboo attached to an Alzheimer's diagnosis, and there was very little discussion. So we were up against that, but we also knew that people needed to be able to find information and resources quickly, things that were going to be relevant to their situation, and not needing to spend time and maybe waste money on things that didn't really benefit them, that didn't answer their questions, that didn't pertain to their story. So if they were caring for their mother, they needed books about caring for your mother. Caring for your husband, not so helpful. So when we embarked on sharing the little platform that we had built in year two with other authors, that's what we did. We started looking for books written from these journeys, and we read all the books. So all the books have been carefully vetted, and then we would present them on our blog using a blog post written by the author and then links to their books and things like that. So it all come down to like personal experience, going through a journey, and then having a desire to share the knowledge so that it was not wasted once the journey ended.
So to dovetail on that, can you share a little bit more about how AlzAuthors has supported the Alzheimer's and dementia communities?
We've made like a much bigger impact than we ever dreamed of. In the beginning, we were like, well, we decided to do a 1 month campaign in 2016. And we wanted to have Monday to Friday, a new author write a post for us about their book. And there really weren't a lot of books out there at that time. And, not all of them were good. So we were kind of nervous. It's like, how are we going to find 20 people to write us a blog post? So we did. I mean, at the end of the month, we were supposed to be done, but we still had people writing to us and people wanting to be a part of this and coming in. So we just decided, well, we'll just keep it going. We'll do a book of the week. We were doing a book of the week. We did that for several years. But it was helpful for the authors because it was giving them a place to put their book where it would be found by the people that really need to read it, as opposed to just in general, like at Amazon or some general spot where the right people weren't going to see it. So that was really helpful. We helped the authors gain credibility and visibility. And then it also became like a one-stop shop for caregivers so that, if they only had a few minutes to search for something to help them, they would probably find something on our site and not have to go through a lot of other books and a lot of other things that maybe weren't good or weren't helpful. So I think that we really helped both caregivers and authors.
So Marianne, you're an author of several
Mhm.
books, so including a series called Blue Hydrangeas.
Yes.
What inspired you to write these books?
Well, I was always wanted to be an author since I was a child. And in 2001, I had a near drowning experience. And I said to myself, if you ever want to write that book, you better get writing because, life is short and things can happen. And I wanted to make sure I did that. So I decided I was a nurse and I worked at the hospital. So I came up with really what I thought was going to be a good idea. And I just couldn't get it to go anywhere. And then one day I met these people who became the like prototype for my characters in my book, Jack and Sarah. And they really planted a seed in my head that took root and it just grew and grew until I actually, it took me 18 months to write the book. I had a full length novel at the end of it. So that really, and they really inspired me. And I went on, took me a long time to get it published. And I ended up self-publishing because I was just getting so many rejections and nobody wanted to read a book about Alzheimer's. Literally, people would say that. Nobody wants to read about Alzheimer's. That was a big obstacle. So that really helped us found AlzAuthors too. So I ended up publishing it on my own. And then, like they say, the rest is history. I ended up connecting with Jean and then Vicki, and we just built this platform.
This is great. This is a great lead up to the transition that we mentioned earlier. And so just another question or two, Marianne. What do you hope caregivers experience when they discover AlzAuthors for the first time?
Well, and we hear this too from people. They are astounded at what they find there. The number of resources is just tremendous. Not only do we have the book collection and the author blogs, but we also have a podcast and we have free resources there and we do events. We've done numerous panels with our authors because we have this band of authors that's like at our fingertips. They're a tremendous resource. So we would bring people together, 4 or 5 of them at a time to have a conversation on a topic, whatever. We came up with a lot of really great ones. We do poetry readings. Everything we do is recorded and then put out on our podcast so people can read it. So if you go there, alzauthors.com, you're going to find all of these resources. And the best part is that they are all categorized according to either the relationship situation or the type of dementia. So if you were caring for your mother and she had Lewy body dementia, you could plug in those words and find the books that pertain to that. No looking at the husband books, no looking at, Alzheimer's or some other type of dementia that, you're not really concerned about. You can kind of pinpoint easily what you're looking for and then browse through like the so-called stacks that way and explore the author, look at their blog posts. Some of them have podcasts with us. You can listen to them, hear what they have to say, learn from them. We try to include tips. So even if you don't read the book, you might pick up some kind of information that's going to help you just through the blog post or the podcast. So people are they're astounded that there are this many books available.
It's an amazing resource. And so that then leads to the question of why is now the right moment for AlzAuthors to transition to a new organizational home under All Home Care Matters?
Well, last year was our 10th anniversary, and we've been doing this for 10 years, and we had a core team of 6 at the time of last year, and there have been many other people that have come in and out and done different things with us over the years. But 10 years is a long time. Everyone is a volunteer. We have no paid people. And as we were celebrating our anniversary, wondering what we were going to do next, people had other things that were going on. Some people were caregiving. Some people were encountering their own illness. Some people had other things they wanted to do, and this was taking up a lot of time. So we kind of came to the conclusion that, we've done this for 10 years and we've built this phenomenal resource. So, but maybe it's time to kind of say goodbye. And then the question was like, well, what do we do with it? Because we didn't want it to die. And so we had a few options. One was to just we had enough money in our treasury as a nonprofit to let it run for several years. Do nothing, just let it sit there and be found. And then we also thought, well, we could find somebody else that might want to take it on and, do the same thing, keep it going, but maybe build upon it. And then we started exploring, well, who might that be? We have a lot of tentacles out there. Happened upon Lance, and with much discussion, we decided, why don't we approach Lance and see if he might be interested in working with us in this way and consuming it, and adding it to his already large collection of caregiver resources. And, he didn't hesitate when I asked him. He said, absolutely. That was his answer. Absolutely. So here we are.
That's wonderful. And so Lance, that's how you got to know that Marianne was ready to step away from AlzAuthors?
Yeah, so Marianne has been on the board of All Home Care Matters for several years. In one of our meetings last year, she'd reached out after the meeting and said, "Hey, needed to speak to you about AlzAuthors." And just instinctively, Todd, I thought to myself, "Oh boy, they're going to either wind it down and shut it down, or whatever the case may be." And so I was very concerned, not only for them, because I consider them dear friends, but also for the resource that is AlzAuthors, and for the countless family caregivers and professionals and those been touched by dementia, that they would be losing this, really cornerstone to the dementia resource community. And when she had met, she kind of explained how, she just had now a moment ago to you and said, would you be interested? And I don't even know if she finished the sentence. And I said, absolutely. Because, when you think about the dementia community, and I know you've probably experienced some of this yourself, not all the information out there is accurate. Not all of it is factual, but all of it on AlzAuthors is. And, and that's the big difference. Like Marianne mentioned about just putting a book out there somewhere, or Amazon or any other place, you just set it and leave it. A lot of people do that, but a lot of those people aren't providing a resource that is factually accurate, giving a realistic view of dementia. And some of them are just looking for, their own self-enrichment opportunities. And we just fully believe and stood behind AlzAuthors. We had them and several others on to celebrate their 10th anniversary not that long ago. We helped promote the film festival. Anytime they had something, it was always an automatic yes. We will do whatever we can to promote it, get it out there. We built a beautiful section under Dementia TLC for AlzAuthors to help, people that may not be familiar with them become familiar with them. And just any way and anyhow we could support their mission and the work that they've, started all those years ago, we wanted to do so. And so when the opportunity to continue that legacy and to continue that work that Marianne, Jean, and Vicki and the others at the, management team and the associates started, we felt, very humbled by that because, I've said this to Marianne several times and to the other ladies. I don't know the appropriate words to really fully express, the appreciation and trust and confidence that they've bestowed on me and also subsequently All Home Care Matters to carry on this work that they started, almost 11 years ago now. And, we take, great pride in that and take that as a very serious, mission for us moving forward and just keeping that, integrity of AlzAuthors alive and the mission going. And also not just for them, but for all these authors also. There's a Marianne and Jean and Vicki out there today who have written a book and are probably still getting all those rejections because, it's not a cool, trendy topic necessarily to talk about, but it is if you are facing it and dealing with it. And AlzAuthors gives you that outlet to share your story, which is going to also not only benefit you, but it's going to benefit all these other caregivers out there that need to find that comfort and that, knowing they're not alone and that other people are going through this or have gone through this.
Well, that's great. It touched on actually everything you just shared, touched on the questions that I have, but I'm going to go a little bit further with all of them. That's wonderful. So talk about more about the new opportunities that it creates for authors in terms of visibility and engagement.
Yeah, well, again, they started something tremendous. There's no question, no doubt in my mind, I think, or anyone's mind, that AlzAuthors is the pinnacle for dementia resources in our space. And, about 5 years ago or so, Marianne had launched the Untangling Dementia podcast, Alzheimer's and Dementia podcast. And, so it's an extension of AlzAuthors to continue getting more resources out there and different ways to digest those resources. Now it's not just in print or on a web page. Now it's in audio and video format. So they were really kind of touching on all of these different mediums of getting these resources out there. What is going to be beautiful, I think, for raising this awareness and expanding that reach is, with our platform, all we were is a YouTube and a podcast show, and our social media and our other shows. We're taking that content now. It'll still be published as an AlzAuthor, creation, but now we're pushing it out through our platforms and sharing it amongst our other brands, just amplifying that message and that reach dramatically. And we specialize in creating videos and content, and with our production team, it's going to heighten that the visual appeal and the different ways that we have of doing things to help really amplify these messages and these resources to people.
Yeah, that covers the questions that I've had, but I want to open it up. If there's something that I didn't ask or that didn't come out, are there anything that Marianne or Lance you would like to add?
I'll let Marianne go first if she'd like.
Well,
nothing like being put on the spot.
No, I know. I just want to say that we were really, thrilled, honored, relieved that Lance said yes, because the last thing we wanted to do was to see 10 years of, not only our own hard work, but the resource that is out there for people to discover and to use to guide their journey. We didn't want to see that disappear or be relegated to the last page on a Google search or something like that. My team has worked so hard. And now that I'm not doing the work anymore, I'm like, all of a sudden I have all this time. And it just is really remarkable that people who feel so passionate about a subject like Alzheimer's, this is the only, as far as we know, we believe that this is the only website out there dedicated to books and authors on any single disease topic. I mean, all the books are vetted. Anybody can take a book and slap it up on their website and say, read this, but we don't do that. We only took about 60% of the books that came our way. When we started, as I mentioned, we had to go searching for authors and for books. Not too long after that, people started to approach us. And we even had people approach us who said, I wrote my book so that I could see it on AlzAuthors, which was like unbelievable. So we're just really happy and grateful that Lance, took this on. He was so willing and so able. He himself has a tremendous platform. He's young. I don't want to be ageist,
Mhm.
but that was like one of the things that we discuss is like, Lance is a young man. He's not going anywhere, this is his business and his livelihood. So it's all connected together, and we knew he was going to be around for a while. Some other people that were interested in our platform, they weren't going to be around. They even let it be known, well, I'm only going to be around for another year or so. So, like, well, that's not what we want. So he was like the perfect person. And we're really grateful. He's invested a lot in it and spent a lot of time working with us to try to make this transition smooth and to make everything that we've created still relevant and available. So thank you, Lance.
Oh, thank you, Marianne. Todd, I think, I just got really one thing to say. When we have our home care company, and we've been in business for about 15, 16 years, way before there was ever an All Home Care Matters. That's only going to be 6 years old in a couple of months. And we were always following and supporting the work that Marianne and them were doing at AlzAuthors. And they were one of our very first interviews, and we reached out to them. Nowadays, we don't have to reach out to anybody, which is nice. People usually reach out
Yeah.
to us, but back then, because we were only planning on our podcast being a couple months long. It was just really during our lockdowns here in Michigan, because we were doing, in-person events all over Michigan. And, we reached out and they, said yes, which was tremendous. And, from that point forward, though, I just felt a very special friendship and kinship to them. And, it's again, I think words get used too often, and it kind of waters down the impact that they're meant to have. But when I say it was truly humbling and truly an honor, that trust and that confidence to take their baby that they all built from nothing to where it is today and place that trust into us to continue it. I mean, I think it goes without saying, it's hard to put that into words, what that really means. And, just hearing, Marianne's words, and just knowing that confidence was there really will always mean the world to me, because of the respect and admiration and reverence I have for them and all authors. Because, you know, Marianne, I don't know if she said it today or not, but this is 10 plus years, Todd, of them running this entire organization as volunteers, never drawing a paycheck. And oftentimes, hopefully you don't mind me saying this, Marianne, oftentimes they're investing their own money to keep it going. You know, it's not a big economic boom when you're, a nonprofit and you're just trying to get resources out to people, unless you're one of the big ones, and so we have some, really exciting things to keep All's authors just as relevant today as it was, last year and into the future. And, I encourage people to stay tuned for some exciting things that we have planned. One of the things, I would share now that we're already committed to is we're going to have book awards for the books. Marianne mentioned they have all these categories, Todd. I don't know if you've ever gone on Amazon to look for a book and you could type in history or, whatever, and you're getting, a couple thousand pages of results. But I only want, American history, that might whittle it down. But what part of American history with All's authors, if you're a grandchild and you're a teen, or you're a grandchild and you're young, a preteen, there's books for whatever category you are dealing with, so that it's speaking directly to your situation. If you're a spouse, if you're a son, a daughter, a wife, whatever it is. And that's what makes it so unique and special. Not only that it's broken down into categories, so you're not having to sift through and hoping you get the right result, but it's also letting you know, with that All's authors stamp of approval, you're getting legitimate, factual, good information that you can rely and trust. I think that, to me, what All's authors, a lot of that is just boils down to trust. Because there's gimmicks out there, people promising the cure to this, the cure for that, and a lot of it is not factually based, and it's just people looking, unfortunately, to capitalize on other people's misfortunes. All's authors isn't about that. It's about letting people capitalize on their experience through real stories, real information. And that's what All's authors really means to me.
Yeah, one last question for you, Lance. In terms of the transition, uh, talk about the timing. Is this something that people can see now? Is it something they'll see in 3 months? What will that look like for the viewer?
Yeah, so there's still a couple of loose ends that the ladies are wrapping up. Once that's wrapped up, we're going to be sending out an email to the entire email, list, if you will, and then we'll be posting it on the AlzAuthors social media as well as the All Home Care's social media, and we're going to do a public town hall. We're going to probably offer at least 2 dates and times, so that people, as many people that can attend that, and talk about who we are. I know a lot of the All's authors just from All Home Care Matters and having them on the show, but there's a lot I don't know. And there's going to be some that don't know us, and we want to kind of ensure them that we're not looking here to reinvent the wheel. We want to keep this going. We want to enhance and expand on what's already there and not tear anything down or whatever. We still plan on doing the film festivals and, the interviews with the authors, with new books, things like that. But we want to reignite and re-engage that community and, let them know we're here to support them, because they're really supporting their loved ones or have supported their loved ones. But the work they're doing is supporting the same people we're trying to support, these family caregivers, and raising awareness and, help them along their journey. So yeah, there's some stuff out there now. It's not fully launched yet. We're hoping to do so in the coming days, but it's going to be tremendous. And, we have a beautiful page dedicated to Jean and Vicki and Marianne on the website right now, as well as on All Home Care Matters. And, we just want to continue honoring their work and their legacy for the foreseeable future.
I think it's wonderful. Having met Marianne once virtually, but certainly knowing of all's authors. And Lance, you and I have done quite a bit together.
We go way back.
Yeah, we go way back. It's hard
back
to
when we had hair, Todd.
That's right.
Maybe not that far.
That's right. But just knowing each of you and what you have done, I'm really excited for you. I'm excited for Marianne, because this helps the legacy continue forward, and under the very, very capable hands of you, Lance, and All Home Care Matters. So I'm excited for both of you, and I wish you all the best with this. And thanks so much for taking the time with me today. I'm thrilled. And for viewers, stay tuned. As Lance mentioned, stay tuned for everything to come with this, and all the best.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Have a great day. Good to see you, Marianne.
Good to see you.